Good morning to everybody. This is Stefano, Mazarin Geopolitics from Italy. Today we will have my friend Professor Miroslav Jovanović, actually from Switzerland. He is a speaker specialized in many issues, but today we will talk about sanction. So we will have a different point of view about this focus argument that is very important, especially in the European Union. So as usual, I will collect all your questions in the chat. So if you have any questions about this argument or others, please don't be shy, put the questions. And after the speech of Professor Miroslav Jovanović, we will answer to your curiosity and questions. Miro, the panel is yours.
Thank you very much, Stefano. Greetings to everyone. As Stefano mentioned, I am from the University of Geneva, from the Dušan Sidjanski Center of Excellence in European Studies, which is a part of the Global Studies Institute. I'm delighted to be here today with you to share a few thoughts about economic sanctions. And basically what I'm going to do is present an article which I wrote for the Economia Internazionale, International Economics, and which is forthcoming in one of the forthcoming issues. Economic sanctions, it is the word which is passing through an inflation of use without always knowing what it actually means. Let us try to define that those are actions such as refusal to trade, invest, payment, transport, which mean to harm the target and these targets can be either countries or regions or companies or individuals in order to force change in their behavior. Now, we are passing through a time of a war. Now it is going on in Europe, but unfortunately and regretfully, I have to tell you that wars became the normal state of affairs. They are going on in Europe every 20, 30 years or so. And let us just take the European history from the year 1900 and slice that period today until today in segments of 20 years. And each 20 years or so, there were conflicts and changes of frontiers. And unfortunately, it seems that all frontiers in Europe, if we are comparing that to a grammar, all these frontiers are a comma, not a full stop. And these contemporary sanctions, economic sanctions, seem to be something like sieges of castles during the Middle Ages. And these sanctions seem to be a kind of tidier way of harming someone than bloody wars. However, these sanctions were also imposed on Japan and Germany between the two world wars during the past century. But these countries gunned their way through these sanctions. And also economic sanctions are applied even by the European Union on Poland, the country which received some 4 million Ukrainian refugees because of certain internal political matters. My presentation here today will focus only on economic sanctions. I shall not enter into the reasons why they are being introduced, but rather their impact. I'll start with the issue: who is in charge of, who is allowed to introduce sanctions, then the development of them, then the birth of the new monetary system, and then we shall see also what type of opportunities are introducing sanctions, and then at the end we shall conclude. Basically, according to the international law, whatever it means, is the United Nations Security Council under the Article 24. Another international organization which may introduce sanctions is the GATT, the World Trade Organization, Article 20, in exceptional cases. But the problem is that these national security issues may turn into a habit of introducing protectionism. Then regional organizations, such as organizations in Europe, Africa, Asia, they also may introduce sanctions, and there are also possibilities for unilateral sanctions by certain countries against the target. However, what are the criteria? They are rather fuzzy, weak, and unprincipled. They are fully blown and bloody conflicts, such as the ones in Yemen, Syria, Ethiopia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Ukraine. And there are also low-level conflicts, such as the ones between China and India and in Gaza. There are also reasons and hideous abuses of human rights in countries such as Saudi Arabia or Myanmar, and there are double standards. If there is a standard, then it is a double standard. For example, after the reunification or occupation, depending on the point of view, of Crimea with Russia, in 2014, the European Union introduced sanctions, but at the very same time, during those sanctions, Brussels gave a green light to the German Daimler and the Russian KAMAZ to produce military vehicles that were used in this conflict. Then France also exported weapons to Russia, Italy also, Iveco. And at the same time, because of these double standards, Turkey is occupying a third of a full member of the European Union, Cyprus, and the European Union is negotiating with Turkey enlargement. So we have seen that that there are double standards, and the rules are applied in a rather light way. About opportunities that create sanctions. After the First World War, Germany was under sanctions and was not able to obtain the necessary raw materials. So what Germany did Germany used what Germany had, and that is salt, coal, and talents. And they made artificially various chemicals, and they excelled in that. And while producing these highly aggressive chemicals, they had to produce also measuring instruments, how many milligrams of this and that, and link with that also pumps to pump from one place to another. So these sanctions gave incentives to Germany to excel and become number one in chemicals, measuring instruments, and pumps. So quarantine of Germany made it more dangerous than for other countries that are there. And then the issue of Crimea almost 10 years ago, sanctions on Russia made the sleepy Russian economy change. It was much easier before just to take and sell gas, oil, gold, diamonds, and timber, and buy everything else. Now Russia was forced to make a change and transform Russia from a significant international importer of food into a significant exporter of food. So these sanctions also create opportunities, and the current worst ever sanctions imposed on one country, such as Russia, had minor exceptions, and these minor exceptions deal with oil, gas, and fertilizers, and these minor exceptions are to the tune of Russian exports of 1 billion euros a day. So these are the impact of these exceptions. Another issue linked with these sanctions is the seizing of legally obtained Russian reserves to the tune of 300 billion euros. And that is nothing new in the West. Let me just step back. We are not talking about the Ottoman Turkish rule and occupation. We are not talking about the communist China. We are not talking about the communist Soviet Union. We are talking about the European Union, law-abiding European Union here today. When the government, with the full support from Brussels and the European Union, confiscated 1/3 of private savings in Cyprus, everything above 100,000 euros. So these confiscations of legally obtained assets and amounts that are in bank accounts is nothing new. So this is sending a wake-up call to many countries. Who is next? Who is next? Is it China, with hundreds of billions of dollars and assets all around the world? And seizing of government assets is one thing, and seizing of private assets, something which is sacrosanct thing in the law-abiding European Union, is another. Seizing of legally obtained private assets, no matter how horrible these people are, before being convicted by the court, is very dubious. And in some countries, in Germany, it's forbidden by the constitution. So this is leading us in a long period of various legal procedures, and lawyers and consultants are licking lips regarding this new type of business. Now, the enormous increase in the price of energy, gas, and to an extent oil, is giving incentives for research and development and finding new sources of energy. Remember what Germany did after the First World War. Now, this high cost of energy is giving incentives to find new sources of energy, number one, and number two, those sources of energy which were expensive just a few years ago or so become commercially viable right now. So this is giving strong incentives for the search of something new. Another aspect of the war and sanctions is immigration. There are several million of Ukrainian migrants and refugees. That is on one side. On the other side, Germany needs approximately 500,000 immigrants each and every year just to remain on the level of the number of citizens where it is right now. So many Ukrainians are heading towards Germany, and it is, in my opinion, much easier and simpler to absorb and digest them in the society than those that are coming from the Middle East. And what is the consequence of it? Those Western-leaning Ukrainians, many of them would migrate, and those in Ukraine which remain, many of them would be Russian-leaning Ukrainians, and in the longer term, this would be a low-hanging fruit for Russia. Next, being excluded from international finance and SWIFT, the new monetary bloc is being created from thin air. And this is something which many countries are observing because of this confiscation, because of the American menace of democracy. If you are not democratic, watch out. So there is the new Chinese system, and it is introducing the de-dollarization of the international economy. These countries may trade in their own currencies, not in dollars. So the demand for dollars would change, would drop, and to an extent, the Americans would lose this possibility to contain and direct other countries which are not using dollars, and also the Americans would also lose a big part of seigniorage, which is an important part of the government income. International monetary system is being changed every 30 years. The Bretton Woods system lasted until 1971. The dollar-based system crumbled on the 27th February of this year, when the G7 ministers decided to confiscate the Russian offshore accounts. And now we are witnessing a slow birth of a new international financial system, which is based on several currencies. The amount and the coverage of this is rather low right now, but it is increasing. India, Arab countries, China, Russia, many others are slowly moving outside of the dollar, and the demand for dollar, as I said, would diminish, and the U.S. influence. Now, Now, if we take a look at the map of the world about the number of countries which introduced sanctions on Russia, we shall see that it is a rather limited number. Those are NATO countries, plus Australia, New Zealand, Japan, South Korea. And that's about it. And that is 10% of the world population. This 90% of the world population doesn't mean that they are supporting Russia. They just send a message that they don't accept the dictate from the West. And 90% of the global population is neither respecting nor fearing the West in this respect. And when sanctions are introduced, what it means, everything is available in the target country, but at a higher price. And those that are at the office and those that are targeted, they are solidifying their rule. And when they say that European countries introduced sanctions, which is not entirely true, because in Europe, one important and big NATO country did not introduce sanctions, and that is Turkey. Then there are small countries such as Serbia or Bosnia and Herzegovina that did not introduce. And one would add also Belarus did not introduce. So it's not even in Europe generally accepted. Impact on Russia. It is even today in The Economist wrote that these sanctions are not working as expected by those that imposed on Russia. These sanctions are only felt to a small extent in big cities where the people move, go around, and in the countryside they are hardly noticed at all. The other impact is that the sanctions introduced inflation in many countries in the world. And basically, even in the literature, wide literature, it is well accepted that, I quote from The Economist of the 19th February, most economic sanctions have not worked. On big countries, not at all. On small countries, to an extent. Rulers in the countries such as Cuba, Iran, North Korea, Syria, Venezuela have not changed their behavior. Even in big countries, in Russia, during the war in Yugoslavia and the sanctions on Serbia, sanctions stimulated criminal behavior, and that is smuggling. And these smugglers entered with their money and influence into the government. And who suffers most? Those that are buying food and in poor countries in the world. And what is very important, what John Maynard Keynes wrote in 1924, is that the sanctions isolate people that want and that need change. These people need contact, support, exchanges, and this is being cut. In order to make sanctions effective, there are a few suggestions. First, objectives need to be clearly mentioned and identified. Weaknesses of the targets also have to be clearly identified. Then the possibility of the target to absorb this hit. Then sanctions need to be fine-tuned, and at the end there should be conditions for their lifting. The problem is that many those that are imposing sanctions are thinking more about the damage that is inflicted, then on the objectives of sanctions to be achieved. And big countries, China, India, Mexico, Brazil, they are not introducing sanctions, and Russia has a wide possibility, not only for sanction busting, but for normal trade with many countries. The what comes out of literature is that across the board, big sanctions normally don't work in order to change behavior. However, modest sanctions have certain impact. And there is a long history of sanctions in Russia, in particular during the wars, the most recent World War, the siege of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, or Stalingrad, Volgograd. And what often people forget is that Russia has been under certain sanctions for over 1 century, all the time under certain sanctions. There was a small stint during the 90s, and that was a disaster with inflation and the like. Let's also keep in mind that Iran is under sanctions for over a half of 1 century. Basically, what sanctions are pushing these countries is to become self-sufficient to an extent. And what the West has underestimated is the Russian capacity and willingness and possibility to endure this pressure. And we'll see how this self flagellation, shooting in the foot in the West, will be responded in the West when the first snow falls down. If there is no gas, or if it is gas, liquefied natural gas, which is in normal circumstances some 40% more expensive than the regular gas. Now it is 4 times more expensive, and there is no enough capacity neither to produce, nor to transport, nor to not to absorb and save this gas, in particular in Western Europe. Now, to hit Russia, for example, regarding oil, is there is an interesting calculation. To produce 1 barrel of oil, of yes, of oil, it costs Russia $5, only $5. Now, to cap by the West, we shall buy Russia, but we shall not from Russia, but we shall not give Russia more money. Say, we shall buy your barrel at $10, so there is a small profit. That is a very serious threat and calculation. Now, on the other side of the story, would Russia be reasonable to sell oil at this discount price, in particular when the price of oil is $100 a barrel? Russia can sell at 90, it's a discount. At 60 or 70 or so, would find as many buyers as are there. Now, coming to my conclusions, is that we are facing the first big economic war of the modern era. The first domino has fallen, and now there is a ripple effect on the world, which is bad. And the track record of all these sanctions is either poor or disappointing. That is the reason for my presentation to be called economic sanction, disappointing old wine in new bottles. The low cost and trouble-free energy trade is behind us. And who are the losers? And there are many. Definitely in Russia, in Ukraine, in Europe, in particular, in Germany. In Germany, prices of energy have gone through the roof. Price of the energy have gone through the roof. It will go into production. It will be built in the final goods and services, which would become more expensive and less competitive on the international market. And the United States is winning in this, putting Germany and many European competitors aside. In the US, there are also losers because of inflation, but keep one thing in mind. Inflation started much before this sanctions period and these military conflicts, war or special military actions. This inflation started to a large extent because of quantitative easing, when hundreds of billions of dollars were pumped into the economy, and now this is increasing or this is accelerating inflation, and a part of it is because of the sanctions and the war. Big winners are arms producers in this situation, in particular in the United States. Developing countries all around are losing because of an increased price for both food and energy. And who remains? China. The biggest competitor in all dimensions with the United States. Once this inflation and high costs start to bite on a wider scale, in particular in the European Union, the population will ask, what is in this for us? In this friendly fire, self-flagellation, self-inflicted damage. And my final point is that these sanctions and these troubles are an excellent excuse to shift attention by the population from real, deep, and longest term problems. And that is dangerously increasing inequality in the situation and the distribution of the social cake. This gap is widening, and this is the real danger. Then another problem from which these troubles are shifting our attention is the behavior of corporate giants, both in finance and manufacturing. They behave as if they are above the law. Then the new technology, which is reducing employment, in particular in manufacturing, then global warming, pollution, aging population, and problems in demography, increasing public debt, then increasing expenditure for the military machine instead of education, health, infrastructure. In particular, increased expenditure in Germany. And would Poland and France be very happy about this remilitarization of Germany. Then accelerating inflation, which is destroying savings and pensions and wages, those that are on the fixed income, gross corruption, and genetically modified goods. These are real problems that are put aside. And now let me finish with a positive thing. Well, Winston Churchill said, never let a good crisis go to waste. In this crisis, the good thing is that there are incentives for innovation. New opportunities are being given both to companies, both to governments, universities, and researchers to spend more time, efforts, and funds on the creation of new sources of energy, materials, and the like. So let me, after this somber presentation, add a little bit of light in this rather dreary situation. That let's hope and wish that innovation will be stimulated and that something good will come out of this bad situation. And with this, Stefano, I would like to close my presentation and listen to questions if there are any.
Yes, I collect many questions, but like trying to moderating them. Let's start with something from okay, like where do you according the eastern border of Europe? Like where does Europe and Asia begins?
Well, that is a question that no one can give a clear-cut answer. You see, the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe includes not only Europe but also Israel, um, Canada, United States, then Central Asian republics of Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan, and the like. That is what the United Nations says. Geographers have another, geopoliticians have another, and this is a question to which there is no clear-cut answer. As I said, that these frontiers are moving all the time, and let's try to be open, because the the whole economic situation and even a big part of science and research is moving eastwards, moving towards China, and I would rather direct my attention to an exchange. As I mentioned, what Keynes said, exchange is something which is good, and let's try to spend attention and actions there.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, but Mira, it was only like a fast to begin. Like so,
Okay.
Ramrod, as Miroslav compared the sanction to laying siege to a castle,
Mhm.
should sanction not be considered an act of war, as they are designed to bring harm to citizens of the affected nation?
Yes, economic war. Yes, definitely. But,
Okay.
but,
Uh,
but for example, look, Japan was under sanctions after the First World War, and these sanctions made Japan more dangerous. So Japan gunned its way out of it to Southeast Asia and the like. So sanctions, economic sanctions, may provoke hard war.
This one it's like from Gordana Stetlian, that it's like Serbian. Like in Serbia, is established NATO office in Belgrade since 2006. It's a quarter of Serbian military. I understand by this that NATO runs Serbian government and makes decision. This is like our personal opinion, like, or am I wrong? And connected to this question, since NATO bombed Serbia in 1991, we are occupied country. What Serbian government should do so Serbia can economically stand on its feet? Middle working class is desperate situation for decades.
Well, I fully agree with this. If Serbia were a neutral country, then military, and in particular those that Serbia war in war with, should not have its office in the heart of the high military command. So, first of all, they have nothing to do over there. But if Serbia were really neutral country, and if Serbia is forced to keep this office, then on the left-hand side of this office should be an office of a Russian general, and on the right-hand side of a Chinese general. Yes, Serbia is an occupied country.
This one from Monocilindro. Do you think that Russia can somehow thrive if it's isolated from Europe? What about the other way around?
Well, look, it depends. Russia is a rather self-contained country. It has everything, but exchanges are always good, and this look. Let me step back and go. Germany was after the First World War a closed country, and it thrived. So, and it became more dangerous than if it were open and exchanges and had exchange with others. Yes, so Russia is much bigger country and can withstand this in a much easier way.
Okay, this is connected. Two questions connected. Is there some kind of original effective historical precedent for the use of a sanction that introduced this common modern habit of using them? Connected question. Or have they always been a supportive part measure that went as a supplement to a conventional economic warfare?
Look, I mentioned at the beginning that there are no clear-cut rules. There are double standards. There are no principles for this introduction of sanctions. On the one hand side, Saudi Arabia is in a war with one of the poorest countries in the world, and nothing about there are no words about sanctions. Russia is in a war or military operation, special military operation, and there is and there are harsher sanctions. Turkey occupies a third of an EU country, and the European Union is discussing enlargement. So it is rather hazy. It is rather unprincipled, and the cost are always the cost is always being paid by the weakest, both in the world and in the sanctions imposing country and target.
Yeah, this is like another one still about sanction. Why we don't sanction Turkey? And this is a continuation. The Turks for years are a very dubious partner. I think there must be not tons of reason to sanction them. Not mention their fight against our Kurdish friends in Syria who fought on our side.
Well, this is not a question for me. It is the question for those that are making decisions. Look, let me one step back. Let's not create the situation in which sanctions are necessary. Let's not provoke and over provoke someone to make something outside borders or inside their own borders to create these sanctions, to create reasons for sanctions. But always there are losers and winners. Losers are the weakest in the society, and winners are those basically arms producers that profit from this.
Okay. This one still from Serbia. Freezing prices and wages, inflation could be stopped. Inflation and sanction only hurt poor people and middle working class. So there is a solution to this problem. Why globalists pushing inflation?
Why? Uh, because they always find a way to avoid it, because inflation is a monetary phenomenon. They they buy food, real estate, and the others. They are getting rid of hard currency, buying real assets whose value is being inflated and increased, and only those that have this money profit from that. And that is once again that 1% of the society, and which is increasing the gap between the rich and the poor. And my opinion, and I have articles on that on my web page, is something which is a heresy to say, and that is the return to the gold standard. Why? Because now those that have the printing press, they can print money from thin air as much as they wish. And basically, this money goes into financial giants, and they do with that money whatever they want. And basically, they try to steal the money from the others. I know, for example, in Switzerland, the brightest students in mathematics and engineering and the like, they don't go into research and development and manufacturing firms. Many of them end up in banks because they know mathematical models, how gas is working. And it is very similar to the chaotic situation in the currency market. And they make models on how to fly through this turbulent situation. Now, in the case of the gold standard, the engineers wouldn't be able to do that. They would go into companies and do the engineering job, not stealing in the banks. They would work on new materials, new ways of doing things, and their talents should be directed towards something real and positive, not into the financial area. And in this inflation, chaotic situation, again, the gap between the richest and the poorest is going to be widening, and this may provoke social tensions. Before, in the Middle Ages, they were the slaves against the feudals. In the capitalist society, those were the workers against the capitalists. In the communist societies, they were the people against the Communist Party and their suppression. And now, in this situation, they are the people against the banks. So that is the that is the danger and problem.
So let me put the last question about still Serbia, and then I will move to finishing questions. So we have like the last 15 minutes. Still, our viewer from Serbia, I'm interested in his opinion about Kosovo, where Serbia stands, where Albania stands, how to solve this tension. Is there a compromise?
Look, this is away from the topic of my presentation here today. This is such a big problem which cannot be solved unless you mean that the solution is a total, not humiliation and destruction of the Serbian state, but also the Serbian nation. This is such a huge problem, and whenever they say that there is a solution or so, there is no solution. In much brighter people and in much better times, that was not solved, and this is definitely not the time and the people that can solve it. And then they say the frozen conflict. Everything is frozen conflict. Everything can explode everywhere, anywhere. So it's a very cheap political maneuver and label to say this is the time or so. And then what is in that for Serbia and what is in that for the Albanians? Albanian, on the one hand side, may get another state. So there are two Albanian states which may eventually get together. But on the other hand, the Serbs in Bosnia, that 99% of them don't want to stay there, they are not allowed to have their own state and leave. And these two
double standard.
Two areas are 150 kilometers away. In Kosovo, there you want to separate from the Serbs, and in Bosnia you force Serbs to be there where they don't want to be. So the Balkans and this area is a bad news region, and don't expect some great new steps and movements over there. Just not to be worse than it is for a long time would be a very big step. And the promise of the EU entry is something that nobody believes into that. Not because of the fact that the conditions are impossible for Serbia, but also, will the European Union continue to exist? Or if it continues to exist, what is going to be its substance? Will it turn into something like OECD or so? The unfinished monetary union is the greatest EU achievement, no doubt about that. But at the same time, it is the weakest link. So the European Union has much more to worry about its own operation and future than to think about absorbing such a volatile region and countries under its umbrella. So.
If I can give you like one provocation about this thing, that it could be added also to like this crisis for Donbass or whatever. We have a simple example from Italy that was never used in a lot of cases, because we have one, let's call a special region with its Alto Adige Tirol. In the border of Austria, there is a UN resolution with its 1661, of 1960, where Austria was like, let's say, monitoring the situation of this region that had a complete autonomy from the Italian government. So I think that historically there is some cases that worked. Nowadays, Alto Adige, Südtirol, it's the richest province in Italy because they took their own taxes, they don't give money to Rome, whatever. It's with a little bit German mentality. So sometimes also in Italy, I think we do things that could work in this special, let's say, situation. I have like...
wait. Just a second. In a sense, I lived in Alto Adige, in Bressanone. So,
Brixen.
well, Brixen, whatever. Südtirol, if you want.
Yeah.
I know I know the problem from inside or so, and I have no problem with that. Not at all. I fully agree and support you, Stefano. But there is one problem: Islam.
Okay.
You are two Catholic nations, and there is, at least if there are no lingual or national or so, there is in a sense, ideological connection among these people, which is a very important and strong and pacifying instrument in this. Over here, when they come and burn many churches and monasteries and destroy on an almost daily basis Christian cemeteries or so, there is a very big problem. So one has to be very cautious about these things. But in general terms, I fully agree with your vision. Not only because you mentioned it, I just by life circumstances, I know this Alto Adige, Südtirol, Brixen, Bressanone.
No, but it's as you know the place. Actually, it's the province with the highest level of quality in Italy. Everything worked, but if the example for Balkans, okay, difference of regions of religions. But for Ukraine, Russia and Ukrainian are both Christian Orthodox, and so this is why I think that for the same reason also the case of northern Romania, border with Hungary, whatever, that you have a lot of problems with ethnicity, but it's the same religion, both Christians. Maybe some diplomacy solution could be added to, but let's move. I have a last question for you. So this is a last question for the public, and then I have my question. Why is so hard for countries to cancel sanction? How can the population hold their elite to account their social posturing while the common citizens goes cold and hungry?
Why it's so hard? Because the politicians may look at that as their defeat. Iran is under sanctions for 50 years, half of a century, because they use that as a puppet show, as marionettes. Whenever you don't like something, you pull a string or so. But the politicians are the ones over there that don't feel cold water and cold apartment during winters or so. So in many cases they are far away from the wishes and desires of the people, and sometimes they manipulate the public opinion with false information. Just take a look at what has happened with an attack on Iraq. It was just the false information about the weapons,
chemical weapons.
Yes, chemical weapons or so.
Mass destruction.
Yes, so it is on the one hand side, the politicians think more about their own image than about the suffering of the people.
So my last question, and then I have a conclusion. So this I collected before, and then I have something to show to you. Like, do you think that the organization like Shanghai Cooperation Organization or BRICS could be alternative platform where Russia can create a loophole to the Western sanction? Why I ask you this one? Because, for example, we have some states, let's say India, that are both in BRICS and in Quad. So with one feet with like US, another feet with Russia, China, and Brazil. So it's
how about Turkey? How about Turkey? It is in the heart of the NATO, and it is one of the most important, at least potentially most important NATO country, and is not introducing sanctions. As I said, and take a look at the map. Everything can be purchased and bought, and there are sanction busting all around. And now Russia is selling less oil and gas, but is receiving more money because of the prices which went through the roof. And the Nord Stream 2 is there, ready and available. You need just to press the button. So I would say that this is a very big geopolitical success of the United States, which last year had such a humiliating withdrawal from Afghanistan, total, and nobody talks about that. An oversized military complex of the United States is looking for engagement, or some engagement, and they got it. Just keep in mind that the American expenditure for defense is approximately 800 or more billion US dollars. But it's not all, because nuclear arsenal is under the Department of Energy. So you have to add a couple of hundred billion more. And if you put a list of all the countries that are spending on defense, the United States is number one, and 10 countries below the United States together are less than the United States. Russia expenditure is, I don't know, number 6, 7 or so. Russia spends less than Saudi Arabia. So this oversized military industry and sector found a very profitable new engagement and shifting emphasis from a disaster in Iraq and Afghanistan. Nobody talks anymore about that, and this is a very good cover story and cover story for this.
Yeah, I listen a lot of American, let's say, geopolitical analysis that the US had to, let's say, make the war only have like successful like as they had at the beginning, and don't try to make the democratization of the country because it's ineffective. But like to finish about gas.
Let me just ineffective democratization. The United States bombed Japan, civilians in Japan, with nuclear bombs, not once but twice. Introduced a new government, American-style democracy, and for 50 years there was one single party in the government. So democracy works in a different way in Italy, in Germany, in the United States, in Japan, in Russia, in Israel, and everywhere. So one size doesn't fit all. Yes, sorry.
Okay, so no, but I agree with you. Let's say about this is only the information about the actual quantity of gas that is stored in the discovered in the Russian soil. So it's about the 24% of the total natural gas in the world, and the proven reserves are equivalent to about 102 years of gas left. So, returning, this is about the reserves. I want to show something to the public that I already showed a lot of times, but only to finish and to ask your opinion. Like that, the gas pipelines, it's still from the Soviet era, except from Nord Stream 1, Nord Stream 2. But as you said, Nord Stream 2 was actually, it's very interesting because it was stopped before the sanction. So Nord Stream 2, it's not under sanction. If something will finish the war, Germans can switch on with a button immediately because it's not sanctioned. It's before. It's very interesting that the total amount of gas that is coming from Russia, it was coming, it's 155 billion cubic meters per year. But the alternatives that we have, as you already said, it's US LNG, but it's expensive. Qatar LNG, more expensive. Norway, but it doesn't have enough
of the reserves.
Yeah. Australia, NG, Canada, Algeria, but however, Italy changed from Russia to Algeria, but Algeria is a military allied of Russia. Nigeria, it's far away, whatever. So this is like what is happening in the Southern Europe with the idea of new pipes from Tunisia. With Algeria, we already have agreement, but it's not enough. This is the Trans-Anatolian natural gas pipeline from Baku, but also this one, in my opinion, it's not enough. And if we look where it's passed the pipe, for Russia, if they want to destroy the pipe, it's very easy. Because during the Georgian war in 2008, they were bombing the pipe, missing it. There were a lot of analysis about it, but it was a message that the Russian knew where the pipe is. And if the next time there will be a war with Georgia, they can blow it. The other thing that it's interesting is alternative to Poland from the north. But the point that I want to show to you is this one. For sure, we have a problem with sanction, but the problem is that Russia have not an infrastructure to export to Asia at the moment. There is only Power of Siberia 1. The total capacity is less than 30 million cubic meters. And to finish all the pipelines, it takes minimum 8 years for the next one. So also, if prices are high, like now, if Russia will stop to trade with Europe, so this is the main question, both sides. This one, it's like the question is, can the European system give up Russian gas and these low prices to make its economy functional? What can be the alternative? Plus, can Russian give up to the European market because actually it's still 70% of their revenue in the gas system?
Well, there was a whole range of questions. Let me answer from the back. Well, everything can be done, but the question is at what cost and within what time span. To replace Russia may be possible in the longer term and at an enormous cost. And in the meantime, the either inflation or cost inflation in Europe would increase, and the European products would not be competitive. Somebody else would enter these markets. So there would not be enough funds for this change. It is possible. It is possible. Why I am look, why I don't see the reason why Russia would stop selling gas and oil to Europe, Western Europe, when it is paid in hard cash, in euros or rubles right now, and it is a significant amount of money which goes into Russia, and instead of being spent back in Europe, in Italy, in Germany, France, or so, it is spent in China. So employment by this is created or kept in China and reduced in Europe. Number two, when you have shown this gas pipeline from Azerbaijan over Georgia, Turkey, and the like, you have no, this one in the middle where you have this R and K, Turkey, R and K. Over there is a huge Kurdistan, and nobody knows exactly how many million of Kurds are living there, between 15 and 17 million Kurds. It takes only one guy to put a small bomb and to blow it up. It is impossible to police this. So the Russians would not need to send missiles or whatever. Just one crazy guy may blow it up. So security is always the question. And my final point in all my lectures with students is continue discussing, continue exchanges. It has beneficial effects because countries don't grow rich at each other's expense. Countries grow rich together. And as Keynes mentioned in my introductory presentation, exchanges are having a pacifying effects. Continue, work hard, take a look at your own affairs, European affairs, including Russia or so, and don't let others from the outside send so many billions of hardware or so to make a very bad situation even worse. I think that I'm clear what I'm talking about. It's, and you know what? Again, in my classes to students in Geneva and elsewhere, I have a table which shows relations, very deepest and strongest relations amongst the German and Russian elite. The last 10 kings or tsars in Russia, all of them, I repeat, all had German wives. So at the end, they were genetically more German than Russian in the blood, but not necessarily.
Also Catherine the Great was German.
No, look, all after her.
Okay.
All of them, even the latest one was Alex. All one after another. There was none, no other by the Germans. There was one Danish, but of the German descent. So, and then there were the Russian generals, foreign ministers during the 19th century. There was a German, I don't remember on the top of my head his name. He was 40 years, the Russian foreign minister. And the biggest threat or worry by the Anglo-Americans is the re-establishment of the German-Russian relation. So it doesn't serve the British, it doesn't serve the Americans, but it served both Germans and Russians. I don't want to say that it was all love relation. There was love and hate. Remember the Second World War or so. But there is another question: how much it was instigated by the non-Europeans or so. But it's a question for geopoliticians and historians and the like. But the worry is to get together Germany and Russia. And Angela Merkel, she spoke Russian, and Putin speaks German or so. They didn't have that problem. Schroeder, the ex-chancellor, he is living or was living in Moscow, and at one point adopted 2 Russian girls and was sitting in the Gazprom or other
Nord Stream.
Yes, Nord Stream. They have continuous relation and exchange. They had, and that is the worry by the non-Europeans or by the non-continental Europeans. So it is better to have this pacifying effect. Now Russia is turning towards China, and China is the country which has the strongest industrial engine in the world, where there is in Asia and Southeast Asia, when there is economic prosperity, when there are things being economically pushed through. Just don't forget that the Russian middle class right now has approximately 600 million people. This is expanding both in number and in wealth. And this market is much bigger than the market of the entire European Union.
You said Russian, but probably it's Chinese middle class.
No, did I said Russian. No, the Chinese. The Chinese middle class has 600 million consumers, and it is expanding both in number and wealth. And this market in China, which is expanding, is bigger than the entire market of the European Union. So people very often forget about that. Forget about that, and I would go for negotiation, pacifying things, mutual understanding, exchange of students, people, politicians, and the like, which would smooth this relation, which would understand better each other. Because on the one hand side, the Americans maybe rightly understand that all others can become globalized Americans. That's the reason and the difference between the Americans and the Chinese. The Chinese don't think that the others can become Chinese. They don't push the Chinese values in Africa, Asia, anywhere. They just want to do business. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's business with dictators or so, but they don't meddle in these matters. But the Americans, they want everyone to have Coca-Cola, films, music, chewing gum, computers and the like. Some of them are excellent things. Some of them, like chewing gum, very dubious value and impact.
Now, I think it was an amazing point of view, but like to agree with you, this is why I invite you here at also to the school. The main goal of this channel is to lead to this geopolitical school in April in Italy, and the idea is like to build bridges and don't burn them. So to create more dialogue as possible, because what I think that it's now lacking in the world is dialogue. The people is closing himself in their small like cocoon. And I think that if we talk together, for example, European and Russians are mainly, for me, I know that very connected to the Russian world, but also European and US, everything. European and Russian are very similar. 80% of the Russians are living in the Russian core. Before the Urals were not Asians. So this is also a lot of Russians don't like Chinese. So this is why we are pushing them to move east. But my idea and my hope is that one peace could come, one process of pacification, and that the relationship could return back, because it could be much easier to make peace and make trades and whatever, instead of make a huge transformation that will affect a lot, especially poor people. Not people with money will get more money, but people without.
As a person that spend all my other.
Miro. I think that we lost Miro. Let's see if we return back. If it's not, I think Miro. Okay, yes. We lost you.
I'm back. Okay. I'm back. You see, I'm not sophisticated with the technology. I touched the button and I
no problem. Look, no, it's only if you want, like Miro, because we are like over 1 hour 20 minutes. Okay. If we wanted to, no, but it's only because to make the video affordable for the viewer after. If you want to conclude, and dopo aspetta che ti saluto quando ho chiuso, because people will not understand Italian, so it's easier for me to make cheating messages. So if you want to say hi to the viewer and conclude with your closing message, we will close the stream.
Look, every crisis brings something potentially good. This crisis is bringing potentially possibilities for new research, development, and innovation. On the other hand, it would be better to discuss, to exchange, as long as it is necessary. And my hope is that people and politicians would come to their senses, to exchange, to talk to each other, to understand, and to even learn from the bridge which you are making. And being in Switzerland, the country which is multi-everything, and not part of the European Union, and the country which will never become part of the European Union, is a good example on how to pacify and make people of different origin, different languages, different regions, or so, sit together and see their future together and to profit from it. And there is no better example than Switzerland. Stefano, I thank you very much for your invitation, and it was my pleasure to discuss with you and those that were involved in this presentation discussion.
Thank you so much, Miro. I received a lot of, let's say, thanks from the people about our speech. So from Serbia, from all over the world. So I think the public live liked a lot the video and this different point of view about the things. Also the viewer after in the recorded video. If you have any question, please post in the comments. Miro will be a part of our geopolitical school in Lake Garda. So I think that you will enjoy the time. So thanks a lot for being with us, and see you in the next stream.
Con gran piacere, non vedo l'ora venire a vederti e il tuo gruppo in
Italia.
In Italia, sì.
Aspetta, Miro. Thank you so much.